Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time here. Today, we are here for Kashmir. And when we say about Kashmir, I mean, it's really heartbreaking because since my childhood, I hear the word Kashmir, Kashmir, Kashmir. Unfortunately, India goes for Atut Ang and Pakistan goes for Kashmir for Pakistan. So the question is what the Kashmiris want and what's really going on in Kashmir. The problem is, according to the United Nations resolution back in 1949, it was decided already that the people of Kashmir have to decide. It's not Pakistan and India who will stand up and say, that's our part. So, unfortunately, we have to cut it out the part of what we call it a land dispute. It's not a land dispute. It's we have to recognize the fact that it's an independence movement. People want independence. Now it's up to them what they want in their lives, because whether they want to join Pakistan, whether they join India, or they want to have independence. And there's a fourth group who does not care. But here's the question: are people dying here? Yes. Are people getting injured with the pellets, guns? Yes. Can we deny the fact that there are over 1 million paramilitary forces out there to control 8 million people? Means that one person, one military personnel for every 8 people. I mean, come on. Even the Gestapos did worse than this. I mean, they did doing better or worse, whatever you want to call it. There was a time in 1940s when the Hitler was growing and people were not standing up. And at that time, there are a lot of people asked why, because we are ashamed what happened. The genocide happened in Holocaust. Unfortunately, the history will remember us that we are not doing our part to bring peace to the area. Now, the question that we are asking, what we can do. I think that people of diaspora in the United States can do a lot for the people of Kashmir. We can reach out to our congressmen, we can reach out to our senators. There are so many ways. I have spoken with some people who've been in Jammu area, and it was hard for them to get out. And unfortunately, the horrific situation that they have showed us in the last 2 years, it's horrifying. Women are getting raped. They're picking up the young children. Anything above year 10 years old, they're picking up and taking them to unknown locations. Parents are looking for their children. The fact is that we are not recognizing Kashmir is not a valley where the poor people live in those cubicles. It's a valley which is people live in prosperity because they have a lot of visitors. Now, for the last over 2 years, there are no visitors in the area. There's nothing going on in that area. So poverty is on the rise. That's number one issue. Number two issue is the Indian government has reduced the age of retirement for a lot of people, for the government employees. It was 60 to 50, now it's 48. Means that the person has to fight to earn next meal. It's going to increase the poverty. Poverty brings what? Horrible situation. And we are forgetting a fact. If you look at the map of Kashmir, what it's adjoining to? China, India, and Afghanistan. Who's on the rise? We couldn't control Afghanistan. So who's on the rise and on the move? Taliban's. And once you leave Taliban's, it happened in the past. They will send mujahideen to train, and they are hardcore people. It's gonna just increase the violence. It's gonna increase the situation in the Kashmir. Please, to the world, my request is please do not consider a problem between Pakistan and India, because if the situation remains the same, it's gonna take over the world at large. We are still regretting what happened in the Hitler era. We do not want Hindutva hurting us at large. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. And it was obviously devastating to know that the age limit has been reduced for 48, and not to talk about the demography that is being changed because of the 35A revocation. And we have a whole lot to talk about. So the time is of the essence, so I would like to request Ms. Aisha Khan to come and share her remarks with us. She is a rights activist and member of Maryland Democratic Center Committee. Ms. Aisha Khan.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aisha Khan and I'm a Democratic Center State Committee member from Maryland. First of all, thank you so much, Middle East Institute, Qazi, Mr. Qazi, and Mr. Shahab Karni, who arranged today's dialogues. Kashmir issue is a very serious issue, and I think it's a humanity issue, and humanity comes first before color, creed, and religion. I visited Pakistan in February and get a chance to meet Michelle Malik, who is the wife of Yasin Malik, and we had a conference at her residence, and we talk about the Kashmir issue, that how we can solve this. We are so blessed that we live here in Washington, D.C., and we can raise their voice behalf of Kashmir people, especially the women and kids, they are suffering. And like Mr. Reis just mentioned that the history will, we can make a history actually if we raise the voice. How we can do that? We can raise their voice in Senate and congressmen, we can contact them, and we can personal level send the letters and say that what we can do for the people of Kashmir. People like Mr. Qazi, Shahab Karni, and you all, we can bring a change in the system. Because again, this is not for Kashmir, it's a humanity issue. It's not about Pakistan and India, it's a humanity. And the Pakistan government, I want to say, I would love to say thank you, because the IK, Prime Minister of Pakistan, personally taking care of this issue and raising the voice, Pakistani people raising their voice for Kashmir people. So if we can do anything from here, Washington, D.C., we definitely do, and we will raise our voice. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Aisha Khan. You know, there is a saying that goes this way: the evil exists because of good people. There's a saying that goes like this: the evil exists because good people do nothing about it. So let's raise the voices for those people who are voiceless. Mr. Shahab Karni, would you like to say a few words before I invite to testify? Mr. Shahab Karni is a political activist, has been an activist for about 30 years, dedicated to the cause of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kazi. And I definitely wanted to thank Dr. Marvin Weinbaum and his team for allowing us to host this event at Middle East Institute. I think he deserves a round of applause, please. Thank you, Professor. And again, as Ambassador Jamil Khan and Aisha and Raiz Khan explained, and we're going to hear from you also, Professor. Kashmir is, that entire region is in a dilemma. And it's a historical kind of a tragedy for almost over 74 years now. So this is about time that this conflict needs to be resolved. And we need to hear the voices, and the decision maker at the international arena or global stage needs to give the voice to the indigenous Kashmiris. So it's not the proxies between India or Pakistan or China or US per se. It has to be the voices and the power of decision making for the indigenous Kashmiris. So we don't have that. We have layers, multi-layers of proxies all over, either local or at the international level. This is going to stop, because otherwise this conflict is not going to be resolved. One. The second thing is the entire Kashmir region has a potential of being a Switzerland in South Asia. And by negating their voices and destroying their will for their rights, we are missing and losing that opportunity at the global stage. So that's all I had to say. And thank you again, Mr. Kazi.
Thank you very much. Now, before I invite the Honorable Professor Marvin, I would like to say this. When I reached out to him, he was very gracious and kind enough to accept the request and accepted the invitation to join this dialogue. He is an expert on the region who handles the Afghanistan and Pakistan in that South Asia regions. Our collective concern is the letting the Taliban cut loose will have an implication in the neighboring countries, particularly in Kashmir. So he will be obviously educating us on the issue. He's a director for Afghanistan and Pakistan studies here at the Middle East Institute. Please give him a warm round of applause and welcome him. He will share his remarks and then we'll have a Q&A. Professor, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a great opportunity to be able to speak, not just people who are gathered here today, but also to those out there who are experiencing what I think is generally recognized as one of the longest running injustices that we have witnessed internationally. I'm speaking now as an outsider. And so I want to say just a few words which may be a little different. But as an outsider who has lived through this period very much of the history of this conflict, what saddens me is that we are by and large saying those things which have to be said for all these years. And I say it's saddening because if anything has changed over this time, certainly our rhetoric hasn't. We've accumulated more and more information about the injustices that have been perpetrated. And I think that we've done as good a job as we might have, although let me say that this new channel will be very valuable to bring to the attention of the international community what is going on. Regrettably, the response has not been a good one. Even those countries that might have been expected to stand up as Muslim countries for the people of Kashmir have not delivered. In fact, they've established ever stronger relations with India, which, while they have not encouraged India on its Kashmir policy, has certainly not discouraged them. So I'm very conscious of the fact now that, again,